Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. So today, the last time we met for our last watercolor journal page, we did half of a page, and today we're going to do the other half of the page. So we are using a 6x9 Bao Hong watercolor sketchbook. 140-pound cold press paper is in this, that is also 100% cotton. I'm using my Core QOR by Golden watercolor paints. And today I am using, surprisingly, if you have been around for a while, I'm using a flat brush, a 1/2-inch flat wash brush rather than a round brush. If you don't have a flat wash, you can definitely do what we're going to do today with a round brush. Okay. So it has been raining around here a lot. Lots of thunderstorms have been rolling through. So I'm going to paint something that's a little abstract, a little illustrative. We're going to use a silhouette. It is going to give, hopefully, the feeling of rain or downward movement with some type of reflection. What I am going to use, though, are all the paints in my palette that I did not use up for the last project. So I have lots of paint in here that I don't want to waste, so I'm going to use that on this. So I'll go over the colors that I think I created last time, because I have this green here. I don't remember exactly how I created it. I would have to re-review that video. But this blue is Phthalo blue with Payne's gray mixed in. This blue is Cobalt Teal. This is Quinacridone Magenta. This is Payne's gray on its own. And this green is some kind of combination, I believe, of green gold with a yellow, or actually green gold with some phthalo blue in it. I believe that's what it is. But any green you have should do. You can make it, the colors don't really matter necessarily, except the overall look and feel of this project. So we're going to do wet on wet, and I am going to be painting just downward with my water all the way down to this horizon line here. So you can see I put a line right here on the page. I have my edges masked out already with masking tape. So I'm going to get this nice and wet. And let it absorb in a little bit, and maybe do just a little bit more after it's been absorbed. A little bit more water. Okay, so I'm going to pick up some of this blue, and I'm going to start wet on wet just to move in a downward motion. All right, and I'm not going to go too crazy. I don't want to fill in all the space all at once. I'm going to start filling in with some of this green. What I am going to be a little careful of, we got this Cobalt Teal, I am going to add that magenta in. I want to keep it kind of away from the green and leave it more near the blue sections. You could just do this in all blues and greens, so you don't have to worry about colors mixing at all. But let's throw some of that magenta in near the blue. And the Cobalt Teal is okay. It's a very blue, but I just don't want it to mix too much with the green, because magenta and green are opposite each other on the color wheel. And they will start to neutralize each other, make a neutral gray or brown tone. So you can see, because this is wet on wet, everything is kind of dissipating and bleeding out and becoming nice soft washes. And I'm switching between the flat side of my brush and the edge of my brush to kind of give more of this rigid line feel, to really create some downward motion. All right, I don't want to use all my colors up. So now I'm going to take these same colors and I'm going to start going back and forth on the bottom. This I didn't do wet on wet. You could. It's going to get wet on wet in a moment by just the nature of putting color down, putting paint and water down, and then going over it with some more paint and water. And this is just fun. You don't have to be too serious about it. I'm going to take some of this Payne's Gray and start putting it right along the edge here. I hadn't really decided what I was going to paint with the silhouette yet, but maybe it'll come to me in a moment. Actually running out of color for the bottom here. Would love a little more pop of this pink. All right, so while that dries, I'm going to think about what I'm going to put in the silhouette here, like a cityscape, something smaller that's more close up, and but I'm going to let that dry first. All right, it's nice and dry. I am going to switch from my flat brush to a round brush, so let me pull out. I think I have like a size 6 in here. Perfect. Size 6 Velvet Touch. And I decided I was going to do something else, like a cityscape, but I decided I'm going to do something I know very well and I've done before. I'm just going to put a little abandoned umbrella in the middle here. Now, normally I would draw this on first, most likely, and then paint over it, knowing I would come back in to do the outline. So I'm going to do my best to kind of freehand this. So the button of the umbrella and the bottom of it, I want to be kind of facing downward like this. So I'm essentially just sketching with my paintbrush. I'm using Payne's Gray. And again, I'm playing in my sketchbook so I can do what I want. So this side got a little long over here, so I'm going to have to compensate with the rest of the umbrella being pretty deep instead of a more shallow. But you know how they have those super dome-shaped umbrellas? Well, that's what this one's going to be. Try to create some of the sense of that ribbing area. And then the handle, put a little hook on it instead of just a straight handle. Make it a little interesting. Now we're not just going to leave it this flat silhouette. It is going to be a black umbrella like this, but I'm going to add some more detail to it. Make some parts a little darker, so this bottom part is definitely going to be darker than the rest, where it sits along the ground. And I'm going to go back in with some of my colors. So I'm going to take some of that magenta, some of the Payne's Gray for sure, and maybe some of this Cobalt Teal. They played really well together, actually, and also the Phthalo Blue. And I'm going to add some more kind of shadow underneath. Kind of more like a shadowy reflection. We're just going to pump up the color down here below. Adding in some blue, lots of water. I'm going to use the pink and blue, so like a purpley shadow right underneath. And I'm going to add in some Payne's gray to make it even darker. I just love color in these, so I'm just dropping in some pure color. All right, we're gonna let that dry. Just a little touch on this side, but I kind of like that. That's much lighter. And I'm actually gonna pull out some color down here. Take my flat brush and do that. Okay, so after that is pretty dry, we want our umbrella itself to be pretty dry. I'm going to go back in with some darker Payne's gray and just add some darker details. So the bottom of this, yes, we want it to be darker. You can see that it has dried much lighter. So I'm just accentuating some of these edges. So where like the ribbing would be on the umbrella. Still using that kind of sketchy feel to it. Contrast, contrast, contrast. It helps with everything, in my opinion. There we go. So now it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. I could certainly put a nice light kind of inside. You see a little bit of the other side over here. I don't think it works as well, but there we go. All right, let's let that dry and take off our tape. Okay, we let it dry off camera. Now we can take off the tape. So what a fun, simple, very easy, but lots of room for playing and experimentation with wet on wet. Using up the paint in our palette. Unfortunately, we created some more, but that's okay. There we go. But how fun to have kind of similar color schemes on both sides, but totally different types of paintings, but both using wet on wet. So this was a lot of fun. So don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials that I use in this video, as well as other things I use on a regular basis. Leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you for our next watercolor journal page very soon.